have Codi Norred. He's the executive director of Georgia Interfaith Power and Light. And he's going to update us on Georgia Power's 20-year energy plan and how we can make it clear to them that we want more clean energy in there.
All
Can
right.
see your screen.
Can you see this?
Yep.
Wow, how wonderful. Okay. Hey, everybody. My name is Codi Norred. I serve as the Executive Director of Georgia Interfaith Power and Light, and I'm going to quickly, in about 5 minutes, try to explain everything about IRPs, rate cases, and the PSC. And we'll see how good I do on that. Georgia Interfaith Power and Light, first off, is a faith-based environmental organization that seeks to inspire and equip congregations, communities of faith, schools, and nonprofits to organize locally, to implement local practical climate solutions on site, and to advocate at the local, state, and federal levels to rectify systemic injustices related to conservation, environmental justice, and energy burden. So I'm going to talk about a little bit of that here. First off, I just wanted to say, yeah, we choose this way of building power because in Georgia, there's over 15,000 houses of worship. So when you think about it, that's a lot of people, it's a lot of land, it's a lot of energy being used, a lot of water being used. So we can create a lot of change from that. Like I said, these are our 3 primary pillars of how we work. We are a grassroots organization by trade. So we work by standing up what we call green teams in congregations or faith communities. We support about 125 of those teams across the state right now, each based in a congregation or a local community. After organizing, we help build programs for congregations to implement practical climate solutions. So that's energy efficiency retrofits and energy audits, it's rooftop solar installations, electric vehicle infrastructure, zero waste. So examining how to appropriately assign waste. Stephen, thank you for that. So both turning things that can be recycled to their appropriate places and eliminating the waste streams that cannot within congregational facilities. Rewilding, so sustainable land use, and then building out resiliency hubs. And then advocacy and environmental justice. So once you've organized, done everything you can where you are, then you have to push on the systemic injustices, which is a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. I like to point out that all of our practical climate solutions are directly related to the recommendations laid out in Drawdown Georgia, which for the sake of time, I'm going to assume that you all are vaguely familiar with, and if not, I'm happy to talk about that at some point later. But you'll note that a lot of the solutions in Drawdown Georgia for drawing down Georgia to carbon neutral are related to electricity, building and materials, and transportation, all of which are directly related to what kind of energy we have on the grid and who gets to take advantage of that energy and how. So first off, I'm going to talk about the IRP and the rate case and what that is. But before we get there, I'd like to introduce you to your Public Service Commission in case you're unfamiliar. These are your 5 statewide commissioners. The Public Service Commission is in charge of regulating Georgia's monopoly utility, which is Georgia Power. So every 3 years, which we'll get into in a second, there's a big IRP, an integrated resource plan docket, and then a following rate case. And we'll get into that in a second. But these are your 5 commissioners. Currently, these commissioners are elected by districts, but they are voted on by the entire state. It's pretty confusing, but every single one of these commissioners is accountable to every single one of you. You don't have one commissioner that represents your district. All of these commissioners are representing everyone statewide. In theory, these commissioners are elected every 6 years. They serve 6-year terms, which is quite a long time. However, currently we have several commissioners who have been sitting past their election date. The last election was supposed to take place in 2022. It was postponed until 2025. So you actually have some commissioners that are going to serve 9-year terms. Some of those terms will be unelected. So before we get into this, just a brief note on what an IRP and a rate case is. So the Public Service Commission takes on a lot of different dockets. It's quasi-judicial. It sort of runs like a courtroom. And so they have a lot of dockets related to telecom, gas infrastructure, biomass infrastructure, all these things. But the main thing is that every 3 years, there's an IRP followed by a rate case. The Integrated Resource Plan, the IRP, is essentially a procedure whereby Georgia Power presents what they're going to do over the next 30 years. What are they going to bring on to the grid? What are they predicting demand to be? All of that sort of stuff. What do they want to generating assets primarily? Do they want new gas? Do they want new solar? For a long time, it was the new nuclear plant. So all of that is sort of what are they going to do? And then after we go through a process of what are they going to do, which includes a lot of organizations formally intervening. Again, it works sort of like a courtroom. So you call witnesses, you call panels, you present evidence. The company does the same thing. Public Service Commission staff does the same thing. And then they vote on kind of what's going to happen, especially over the next 3 years. Because again, this docket happens every 3 years, though they predict the next 30 years. That obviously changes every 3-year period. So once they decide what they're going to do and what they're going to bring online, then the next case is the rate case, which is who's going to pay for it. So it is, what are we going to do in the first docket? Who's going to pay for it in the second docket? And oftentimes those costs are borne by the residential rate classes and small business and small commercial. The two things that we focus on in the IRP is the problem of energy burden, which is how much are low-income communities experiencing rate hikes, which we'll talk about. Generally, energy burden is the percentage of after-tax income that a household pays on their energy costs. Generally, that bucket should include both your home energy prices and your transportation prices. So it should include electricity, gas, and transportation. The average for that is around 8% for all of that US-wide. Here in Georgia, we have some of the highest energy burden in the country. So just on electricity alone, there are several zip codes in which households are paying upwards of 15% of their household income just on electricity. So when we're talking about what do we want to achieve in the IRP and the rate case, it is hopefully programs that both alleviate this burden and also an adequate assignment of the costs of what's going to be brought onto the system to those who use the most energy and can afford to pay the most. The other thing that we try to advocate for is bringing on clean energy. So both in large clean energy like solar farms and things like that, so that we can bring more clean energy onto the grid, but also policies that allow individuals and companies to access clean energy more readily. So that would be friendly rooftop solar policies or net metering policies and things like that, which you all may be vaguely familiar with. What I wanted to point out is that this is what's happened over just the last couple of years. So over the last couple of years, there's been about 5 rate increases, and we'll expect a 6th rate increase after the rate case in 2025. In total, over the last 2 years, through these rate increases, the average residential bill has gone up about $44 a month. Obviously, that varies depending on usage, but that's quite a significant increase over just a couple of years. So we will be advocating for increases in clean energies and also trying to make sure that rates don't go up more than they have to, and hopefully get assigned to the classes that can pay for them instead of residential customers who use way less energy but are paying more than their fair share on these types of things. What can you do? I wanted to highlight that we are co-hosting a workshop series with South Base Energy Institute. We're doing a series of 6 monthly workshops. And I think if I can do this, here we go. I just put that link in the chat, and I can also email it to Helen so you all have it. There are 6 workshops. It's on the 3rd Wednesday of every month. It is going to be at Legacy Park in Decatur. It is free lunch. The event itself is free. You just need to register. So I would invite you into that process. Especially, I would invite you to the first one, because the first one is going to be kind of the IRP overview. What does it mean? How do you get involved? And then there are other topics, including energy equity and climate, resource reliability and transmission, renewable energy and capacity, energy efficiency, and then how to advocate for your issues effectively at the Public Service Commission. So I would say I've dropped that link in the chat. It's here. Register. We just opened that yesterday, so I would invite you to do that. And then also sign up to testify. One of the things that you can do is every day, once the case begins early in 2025, there will be public comment at the beginning of every single day that happens. And so we would really like for people to come, lend their voice, talk about why clean energy matters to you and why things like solar impact your communities, but also why you as a residential customer shouldn't be paying so much on your bills, quite honestly. I mean, you really do have a sort of personal interest in this. And you can also sign up with us to get updates about when those commission hearings are happening. And again, all of that will be covered in the IRP rate case and workshops. So I will stop there given the time, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Cody. I will definitely be at those meetings and look forward to participating with you guys.